Welcome to this webinar. My name is Stephanie and today's topic is about support, social, emotional and psychological wellbeing. Wellbeing includes many components. Such of these components include the following. Psychological wellbeing. Psychological wellbeing may involve self-control, self-determination, positive relationships, personal growth and development, the feeling of purpose and meaning in life. A balance between challenging and rewarding life experiences also helps. Social well-being refers to sharing, building, and maintaining positive relationships. Healthy social well-being usually involves having a solid support network. Spiritual well-being. Spiritual well-being usually relates to the feeling of purpose and meaning in life. It is a very personal component that may interact with others in this sense and is often related to religion. Cultural well-being includes sharing beliefs, customs, values, behaviours, and identity. Financial well-being is about financial security, the assurance of a stable and adequate financial capacity, freedom of choice, the complete control of one's finances. And professional well-being. Career well-being is having a positive outlook and sentiment on work or vocation. It may be having a sense of pride or fulfillment in what one does. Economic rewards may or may not matter. So the final stage in supporting independence and well-being is through supporting social, emotional, and psychological well-being. In order to support social, emotional, and psychological well-being, you must promote self-esteem and confidence using positive and supportive communication. Contribute to the person's sense of security using safe and predictable routines. Encourage and facilitate participation in activities according to networks and preferences. Identify and seek help in aspects of support work outside the scope of knowledge, skills, and job role. Identify and report variations to a person's well-being. Identify cultural or financial issues impacting on the person's well-being. Identify the person's risks and protective factors about mental health. Recognise and report abuse and neglect on the person. Identify and report situations beyond the scope of your own role. Promoting self-esteem and confidence using positive and supportive communication. Self-esteem is how you see yourself and how you rate or gauge your value or skills. Confidence is how others see you. It can also be how you present yourself. Self-esteem and confidence show that an individual may have conflicting thoughts and behaviours. You may find yourself helping a person develop both. In doing so, positive and supportive communication can help. Positive and supportive communication is communication that is valuable, optimistic, and friendly. It is valuable such that the receiver gains something useful. It is optimistic such that it evokes hope and confidence. It is friendly such that it does not intend to harm in any way. Supportive communication is communication that helps those experiencing distress. It involves a deliberate approach to counter distress by doing any of the following. So providing emotional support. It involves expressions and gestures that encourage, reassure, and sympathise. Establishing belongingness. It means surrounding the person with positivity and impactful people. Raising self-esteem. It involves highlighting the person's achievements, abilities, and attributes. Positive and supportive communication helps with self-esteem and confidence by their very nature. Works best together. Positive and supportive expressions or gestures help a person to see themselves differently and be more comfortable with others. Some practices that incorporate positive and supportive communication are acknowledging people when you first see them. Greet people by their name or the name they prefer. Be an active listener when someone is communicating with you. Talk to others as equals. Avoid language and tone that talks down to them. Respond with empathy. Never one-up or downplay someone's feelings. Compliment when someone looks nice or changes their appearance. Acknowledge a person's efforts and achievements. Show interest and purpose in the person's lives. Promote and support personal choices. Respect personal beliefs and culture. Contribute to the person's sense of security using safe and predictable routines. Routines are tasks or activities done regularly. Regularly means having the exact requirements or results of every task completion. Routines are predictable. With proper planning and implementation, routines can then be safe. Safe and predictable routines make people feel secure. You may have to help individuals set up a routine for their service. You may also provide services that are essentially routine tasks for the person. In these cases, consider the best practices, such as maintaining the balance between the plan's goals, the person's preferences, ensure consistency of requirements used for routine tasks, and constantly review the safety of the person in any routine. Personal preferences and routines that you may have in place and are central to the person's sense of security. Shown below are the routines and some personal preferences to consider. So, daily medications. Some people find it difficult to take medications in tablet form. You may ask their doctors to consider alternatives like those in a liquid form. Daily care support. Some people are more comfortable with one person as their care provider. They may have reservations when new carers come to replace or substitute. It is best to inform the person before the new carer comes in these cases. Daily meals. Some people like to consume the same food items every day. If these food items are unhealthy, you may have to educate the person about them. Together, you may find alternatives. Encourage and facilitate participation in activities according to networks and preferences. Various activities feed into the social, emotional, and psychological well-being of a person. Of these activities, you can consider the following. Social activities. Social activities bring people together. There is communication and interaction in a meaningful and enjoyable way. Cultural activities. Cultural activities help a person to see themselves and their part in a community. These activities allow them to express their history, culture, and identity. Spiritual activities. Spiritual activities refer to those that fulfill a person's spiritual beliefs. These activities enable the expression of connection with something greater than an individual. Personal preferences. You may have to help a person join activities that align with their identity and preferences. Taking time to understand the person is important. Asking the person is still the best way to learn more about them. You can also identify and use their existing support activities. Only then can you help them establish activities that address their needs. Encouraging participation. Encouraging a person to join activities may be challenging, but you must exert every effort for them to be active. Recall that many activities stimulate the person's well-being. Some best practices to consider are, where appropriate, respond positively to their related interests. Related to the first practice is to show respect to their preferences and forward a feeling that the planned activity is useful or relevant. Facilitating participation. So to facilitate is to help a person by making things easier for them. It generally means that you help the person set up their goals and desires. It also means that you assist the person in preparing pre-requirements such as transportation, documents, and permits. You provide for the requirements during the opportunity, such as guardianship, preparation, equipment, and company. Existing and new networks. Individuals may have existing support networks that may include friends, family, co-workers, or other important people. These individuals can help the person in many ways. They can motivate the person into joining activities. They may even take part in the planned activities themselves. You can identify the existing network through talking to the person directly, referring to their personal file notes, talking with their friends and family, consulting with colleagues, observing their routine. New networks are something to consider. You can help the person build and maintain new networks within the following practices. Be compassionate, be a good listener, give people space, be a friend that you would like to have, avoid having too many rules and expectations. Identify and seek help on aspects of support, work outside the scope of your job role, As a support worker, you may find yourself in situations beyond your job description. The person may ask you to join social activities, join their inner circle of friends, play an unfamiliar sport with them, joining cultural activities, join activities that for you are uncomfortable. The person may offer food that may give you allergic reactions, and joining spiritual activities. Join them in spiritual services unaligned with your beliefs. Do some spiritual services on their behalf. Extending specialized services. Do home repairs you cannot do. Provide interpretation services that you're not trained to do. So recognizing aspects of supporting a person's well-being outside the scope of your knowledge, skills, and job role, your responsibilities must be well defined. Your job description and your role in your organization should take care of this. Your skills and knowledge should also align with your duties and responsibilities. Supporting a person's well-being within the scope of knowledge, skills, and job role. As a support worker, you work within the limits of your role. Consider the following best practices as you provide support. Establish a clear work role boundary. Make sure that the person is aware of your role and responsibilities, and learn to decline any invitations respectfully. There are times when you will need to seek help. For example, some requests and needs of the person are valid. Consulting with your supervisor and organization is the best first step to take. Some needs may call out the services of other providers. Your organization should then help the person find these providers. Some concerns may need the attention of the person's family or carer. These are especially true for more personal or trivial matters. Identify and report variations to the person's well-being. Aside from observing the person's physical conditions, you must also recognize changes in the social well-being, emotional well-being, and psychological well-being. You must keep an eye out for any changes or variations in these components. Changes can point to issues that impact on a person's health and well-being. Recognizing variations in social, emotional, and psychological well-being. Social, emotional, and mental well-being are connected and tend to overlap. If there is an issue with one of these aspects, the overall well-being of the person is affected. Indicators of emotional concerns and issues include mood swings, sleeping more or less, weight loss or gain, and self-inflicted injuries. You must consider other variations that involve changes in mood or behavior, including changes in mood, such as easily agitated, suicidal thoughts, unusual restlessness, chronic sadness or anxiety, sudden changes in affection, tearfulness or frequent crying, being sad or happy for no clear reason, and displaying a different mood not seen before. Changes in behavior include chronic fatigue, changes in sleeping habits, starting to push people away, sudden withdrawal from people, displaying a different body language than before, sudden uneasiness from particular people or groups, and losing interest in activities that they used to love. Reporting variations in social, emotional, and psychological well-being. Changes in well-being are usually recorded in progress notes. Check if the details you recorded are accurate and correct. Since these notes are updated regularly, it is easier to spot patterns and irregularities in the person's mood and behavior. Organizational policies and procedures might require you to report variations in social, emotional, and psychological well-being to your supervisor. If the variations are due to issues outside your scope of work, you'll also have to report these to other professionals. Changes in social, emotional, and psychological well-being may be precursors to other problems. Detected variations may point to issues in mental health and abuse. Identify cultural or financial issues impacting on the person's well-being. Culture and finances play a significant role in a personal well-being. Issues surrounding these factors can cause distress to someone. Cultural diversity and economic disparity make it difficult for some to live. Cultural issues You may work with people who has a different culture from your own. The key is to remain empathetic and recognise differences. Culture is something that is shared between a group of people. You should have an idea of the different customs and beliefs of people. If a person is far from other people who share the same culture, they can feel at a loss. Some issues that may arise include feeling like they are losing their identity, not able to practice their customs, feeling embarrassed to follow their traditions because they feel different. Another cultural issue is racism. Due to their culture and race, the person may encounter situations such as internet trolling, abusive language, public humiliation, employment discrimination, making fun of a person's appearance. A person who experiences the situations mentioned may feel uncomfortable or unsafe. This is greatly affect their well-being because their sense of self is also targeted. As you talk with someone about their cultural issues, consider being aware beforehand of common problems that a person may face. If you are not familiar with something, ask respectfully. Make them feel safe in your presence. Never let your biases get you. Affirm the person's feelings. Ensure them that it is not their fault. Confirming financial issues. Finances cover how one earns and manages money. Money makes it easy to manage economic power. A person with lots of money can access many resources. Problems may arise when one cannot earn, manage, or spend money. Consider the following financial issues in the context of money. Issues on earning money could be due to unemployment, inadequate compensation, lack of access to safe loans, scams, and other illegal activities. Issues on managing money could be lack of access to formal banking, restricted access to own money, stolen money or valuable items, irresponsible spending. A person who lacks buying power is at a disadvantage. They may not afford basic needs such as food, clothing, and shelter. They may not enjoy activities that help in developing their well-being. In your work, you may have to identify the root cause of their financial issues, which may include financial obligations, gambling and other vices, lack of financial education, employment discrimination, language and cultural barriers, lack of proper training or credentials for work. Talking about finances can be a sensitive topic for some people. When confirming issues, let them understand why you are talking about their financial issues. Affirm their feelings and set boundaries. Identify the person's risk and protective factors about mental health. Emotional concerns and issues are a subset of mental health concerns. Mental health is a combination of social, emotional, and psychological well-being. Best understood by describing a mentally healthy person. So a mentally healthy person is someone that has the capacity to learn new things, can form and maintain relationships, can be motivated and be productive, can manage everyday stresses of life, can deal with change and uncertainty, acknowledges their strengths and weaknesses. They can feel, express, and manage a range of emotions. Risk and protective factors of mental health. So risk factors are entities or situations that cause negative effects. Protective factors is where positive effects come up. A person may experience mental health deterioration if the person is exposed to mental health risk factors. Conversely, mental health protective factors may prevent deterioration or reverse its effects. The table below shows both risk and protective factors for mental health. So social and cultural factors, the risk factors are fears, anxiety, religion, and isolation. Protective factors are exercise, healthy diet, quality sleep, connection with others. Social and cultural factors, risk factors include ethnicity, relationships, a reduced sense of purpose, recent negative life events. Protective factors include interactions with family and friends, regular physical, mental, and social activity, active participation in spiritual or religious community events. Physical factors. The risk factors could be age, smoking, family history, or health problems. Protective factors include exercise, healthy diet, quality sleep, and regular activities. The previous table shows some of the factors to consider for mental health well-being and its components. As a support worker, you can refer to the person's individualised plan for any mental health considerations. Your organisation must also provide you with the needed knowledge. This case is due if you are working with mentally vulnerable people. Risk and protective factors of mental health. Depression. Depression is a common and serious medical illness that causes feelings of sadness and or loss of interest in activities you once enjoyed. Risk factors of depression include fears, loneliness, self-isolation, reduced sense of purpose, recent negative life events, broken or unhealthy relationships. Known protective factors of depression include regular physical, mental, and social activity, connection with others, quality sleep, healthy diet, and interaction with family and friends. Substance abuse. Substance use disorder is a disease that affects a person's brain and behavior and leads to an inability to control the use of a legal or illegal drug or medication. Substance abuse risk factors include pre-existing mental health issues, stress or hypertension, peer pressure, unhealthy living arrangements, family history of drug addiction, early use of substances. Known protective factors of substance abuse include a healthy diet, relaxation activities, regular medical checkups, exercise, connections and interactions with others, quality sleep. The previous table shows some of the factors to consider for mental health. The risk factors were also grouped according to some components of well-being. The factors provided are not exhaustive. You should refer to the person's individualised plan for any mental health considerations. Your organisation should also provide you with the needed knowledge. Recognise and report abuse or neglect on the person. Recognising signs of abuse and neglect is important so that you can act immediately. In your work, you must learn how to spot abuse and neglect, know your organisation's policies and procedures for these things. This is important in protecting the physical and mental safety of the people in your service. Missing signs of abuse and neglect will lead to further harm to the affected person. Recognising possible indicators of abuse or neglect. So abuse and neglect are two different forms of negative behaviour. Abuse and its forms. Abuse is the improper treatment of one person to another. The abuser is usually someone with leverage. The victim experiences violence or cruelty. Who can potentially abuse the person? A support worker or carer during service, family members or relatives, other related persons such as friends, partners, etc. Some people, especially older people and people with cognitive disability, are especially vulnerable to abuse. Some common forms of abuse are physical, sexual, emotional, and financial abuse. Neglect and its forms. Neglect is when someone fails to meet a person's needs in care. That someone may include a worker, a family member, a carer. It means depriving a person of their basic rights. That can be as bad as the other forms of abuse because it also harms the person. In your work, you must learn how to recognise indicators of abuse and neglect. Some indicators are not always as visible as others. Certain indicators can be similar for different types of abuse. Common forms of neglect are physical neglect, emotional neglect, and financial neglect. Here are some indicators you should watch out for. So for physical abuse, indicators could be injuries or bruising on the face, head, and or neck, unexplained fractures, dislocations, sprains. Explanation is inconsistent with the injury. The explanation varies, and fear or anxiety. Emotional abuse, physical indicators could be speech disorders, weight loss or gain. Behavioral indicators are feelings of worthlessness about life and self, and excessive compliance. Financial abuse, physical indicators are restricted access to or no control over personal funds or bank accounts, missing money, valuables, or property. Behavioral indications are stealing from others and borrowing money. Here are some indicators that may signal a presence of physical neglect. So hunger, thirst, or loss of weight, poor hygiene, poor hair texture, inappropriate or inadequate clothing for the weather conditions, health problems that have worsened due to their medical conditions being mismanaged. Behavioural indicators could be requesting, begging, or scavenging or stealing food, constant fatigue, listlessness or falling asleep, direct or indirect disclosure, extreme longing for company, displaying inappropriate or excessive self-comforting behaviours. In your work, you must observe how a person acts around their peers, family, or friends. Notice the differences between specific people. Take note of any changes in behaviour, such as eating or sleeping patterns. Some signs you notice might be symptoms of health problems that must be addressed with other health professionals. Reporting of possible indicators of abuse or neglect. You may encounter a person experiencing abuse and neglect. It is a legal requirement to report suspected cases of abuse or neglect. In witnessing abuse or neglect, there's a duty of care to report this to management or authorities. When reporting of possible indicators of abuse or neglect, workplace-specific protocols that may be in place include documenting the suspected abuse or neglect in an incident report, in an injury form if required, or in a communication book or email. Verbally reporting to the suspected case to management or senior staff on duty, following up on the matter with management or authorities as needed. Mandatory reporting, also called compulsory reporting, is the responsibility to report suspected instances of abuse. Professionals, service workers, and support workers all have this responsibility. You must know the mandatory reporting laws in line of your work. This will help you protect the rights of the people in your care. Mandatory reporting for older people. The Aged Care Act 1997 has introduced a serious incident response scheme. This requires workers like you to report incidents of abuse of people in care. It defines an incident as the occurrence or suspected occurrence of abuse, including unreasonable force, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, stealing done by a care worker, neglect, unreasonable use of restrictive practices, unexplained death of an older person, unexplained disappearance of an older person. Workers have the duty to report incidents to the proper authorities. Workers must file a report to the Department of Health or the police within 24 hours of the incident occurring. Your organisation must respond to these reports as soon as possible. There must be a record of each report, including implemented actions to address it. The only exception to this reporting is if the offender has cognitive impairment. The Serious Incident Response Scheme. The law protects the reporter from criminal or civil responsibility. The employer cannot punish a reporter for reporting a valid incident. The employer must protect the reporter from threats and victimisation. Mandatory reporting for children. Support workers for children must also report any act of abuse or neglect to the reporting authorities. Each state and territory has a resource for reporting abuses of children. Remember to always refer to your organisation's reporting policies and procedures. Mandatory reporting for people with a disability. States and territories have laws that specify mandatory reporting for disability support workers. Same with other incidents of abuse or neglect. Remember to always refer to your organisation's reporting protocols. Reporting of issues surrounding abuse. If you notice possible signs of abuse or neglect, make a closer observation. You must try to come up with an explanation for these signs. Report these observations, even if it turns out that there is no abuse or neglect happening. Instances when you should report an incident are: you witness abuse happening firsthand, you observe signs of neglect in a person, the person tells you that no one is caring for them, the person tells you that someone is abusing them, a staff or family member tells you that they have been seen abuse happening. Organisations should have their own policy for reporting cases of abuse and neglect, including procedures such as steps for reporting, to whom you should report, what to do when you witness abuse happening, informing an older person that you're reporting abuse on their behalf, what to do if an older person does not consent to a report, what to do after you report an incident. So managing issues of surrounding abuse. Below are the do's and don'ts and do nots when dealing with situations and issues of abuse and neglect. So you do the following: you seek help from your direct supervisor, you follow your organisation's procedures for reporting incidents and abuse, you maintain privacy and confidentiality of the people involved in the situation, you follow procedures for managing reporting in your state or territory, you do not investigate on your own, you do not confront the perpetrator of the abuse, you do not share information about the situation with your family and friends, and you do not provide advice and counsel to the person involved in situations of abuse. Identify and report situations beyond the scope of your own role. Some situations will need a professional response. As a support worker, you must learn to identify signs of these situations. Remember that you have limited responsibilities in responding. You will only have a reporting role unless you have the proper training. Recognising symptoms beyond the scope of your own role. There are difficult situations in social, emotional, and psychological well-being. Considering suicidal thoughts, these are having thoughts and ideas on ending one's own life. These are usually a symptom of significant mental health. Causes of suicidal thoughts may be abuse, remorse, substance abuse, the person talking about suicidal thoughts, such as wanting to die, extreme guilt or shame, being a burden to others. Other possible behaviours to watch out for are researching on ways to die, extreme mood swings, and eating or sleeping less, or substance abuse. You must use a person's medical history together with any observations made. Being cautious is part of your responsibility. So mental deterioration refers to changes in a person's mental state, causing a decline in cognitive function. Signs of mental deterioration. Several causes for mental deterioration and disorders include acquired brain syndrome, traumatic experience, neurological disorders, psychological disorders, diseases affecting the brain, genetics and family history. Common signs to consider include memory loss, extreme mood swings, compulsive behaviour, sudden change in personality. There are difficult situations in social, emotional, and psychological well-being. Considering the list below, signs of abuse. These signs may be physical, emotional, or behavioural, involving physical injury, non-stop crying, wounds and bruises, torn or dirty clothes. Reporting to a relevant person. You may have to report to the following personnel for detected situations: your supervisor, the proper authorities, the medical personnel available, the person's assigned medical professional. Like reporting other observations, you must know the answer to the following questions: what do you have to report? How should you do the report? How frequently should you report? Who do you approach for reports and updates? How do you contact them during emergencies? As a worker, always remember to follow your organisation's policies and procedures correctly and honestly. That your prompt and proper response may be a difference maker. What have we learned? In this session, we have covered recognising and supporting individual differences, promoting independence, supporting physical well-being, supporting social and emotional and psychological well-being. The next step is to go to your tutor's online learning portal and complete the assessment activities. Thank you for your time today. I hope you found the session informative. Thank you.